Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our panel discussion on not just entry level strategies for hiring veterans for senior roles. We're thrilled to have an esteemed panel with us today, ready to dive into the topic of not just entry level. Oh, I already said this strategies to source and hire veterans for senior roles. My name is Jessica Lane, and I am the manager of university relations and TA programs for GXO Logistics. As the world's largest third-party contract logistics provider of supply chain solutions, GXO is committed to fostering a diverse and skilled workforce. Me, personally, in my role, I manage early career programs and at times interact with both active reservists and veterans. While I'm not a veteran myself, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank those who are in attendance today, as well as my father, who is a retired service member of the Air Force Reserves. And I'm truly excited to be here today, and even more delighted to introduce our speakers and get the conversation started. So let's explore how we can effectively tap into the wealth of talent that veterans bring to senior roles. So first, I'm going to introduce Jonathan J.D. Dew. He is the Executive Director of the Center of Military Transition at the Mason School of Business at William & Mary. In this role, J.D. leads the Mason School's efforts to develop and empower veterans to think and lead like executives. Prior to serving at William & Mary, J.D. spent several years as a director of programs and scholarships at the Pat Tillman Foundation, where he ran the selection process for remarkable active duty service members, military veterans, and military spouses. An alumnus of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's Hiring Our Heroes Corporate Fellowship Program, J.D. is a 20-year veteran of the U.S. Army, where he served as a cavalry and armor officer in a wide variety of assignments, to include command, serving on the faculty of U.S. Military Academy, and as the lead writer for a number of doctrinal manuals and future warfighting concepts. In 2024, JD was also named a Hoover Veteran Fellow at Stanford University's Hoover Institute, where he currently researches and develops solutions to empower veterans and transitioning service members in their search for productivity, fulfillment, and resilience as they enter the civilian workforce. So, JD, thank you for being here. Tara Burnett is the Human Capital Talent Acquisition Lead for System High Corporation. In this role, she is responsible for finding, recruiting, hiring, and retaining talented candidates. She is also responsible for planning, developing, and implementing an effective TA strategy. Ms. Burnett joined System High in 2022 as a technical recruiter and was promoted to her current role in 2024. She has more than 20 years of security experience, specializing in security systems and program protection strategies. She has proven expertise in operational security, counterintelligence, physical security, personnel security, and IT security support. Ms. Burnett is a proud veteran of the United States Air Force. Before joining System High, Ms. Burnett was an intelligence analyst at Lockheed Martin. She was also a program security representative at Agility, a program manager, assistant, and section supervisor at Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab, and a senior security specialist at the U.S. Cyber Command. Ms. Burnett is skilled in technical writing and the testing of and evaluation of security systems. She is adept at developing and implementing comprehensive security strategies and TA initiatives that enhance organizational resilience and compliance. Ms. Burnett has a bachelor's degree in political science and international relations from Troy University and a master's of arts degree in business and organizational security management from Webster University. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but she has CompTIA Security Plus, Ethical Hacking, and Splunk Core certifications. Tara, thank you so much for being here as well.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Lewis is one of the nation's leading experts in career transition for members of the military community. He is the author of the award-winning and Amazon best-selling HarperCollins book, Mission Transition, a practical guide for veterans in career transition. His second book, Hiring Veterans, is an award-winning practical guide for organizational leaders on how to build programs to successfully assimilate members of the military community. Matt holds an MBA in Operations and Finance from the Kelley School of Business at Indiana University a BS in mechanical engineering from West Point, and is a graduate of the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College. He is a retired lieutenant colonel from the U.S. Army Reserve. Thank you for being here, Matt. And last but definitely not least, Darby Mee. Darby currently serves as the Vice President for Public Sector at Virtual Service Operations, an IT services firm based in Manassas, Virginia. Veteran hiring at all levels is a priority for VSO, and Darby leverages both formal and informal means to do so, with programs such as SkillBridge and personal networks. In addition to his corporate role, Darby is a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps Reserve, where he supports Marine Forces South. A graduate of the College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, right? Am I saying that right? Worcester, Massachusetts.
Worcester.
Yeah, I almost said it wrong. With a degree in history, Darby also holds a MBA from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and is a graduate of Marine Corps Command and Staff College as well. Thank you, Darby. So today we're discussing the strategic priority of hiring veterans, particularly for senior roles. Specifically, this group, we talked about it. We really want to focus on those director and VP positions. While we understand that C-suite roles often suit general and flag officers, we see great potential in field grade officers and senior enlisted personnel. So we really wanted to focus our conversation around that today. It's important to recognize that rank in the military doesn't always correlate directly to titles in the civilian world. So let's dive now into that discussion. I'm going to turn it over to JD to provide some color to that.
Thank you so much, Jess. I think this is a really important discussion that deserves a nuanced understanding.
Oh, JD, you have some feedback. I don't know.
I'm sorry. Is that better or?
I'm getting feedback. Is anyone else getting feedback?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like a ringing.
Yeah. Is that better or?
Ooh.
Mm-mm.
My apologies. Is that better or worse?
It's still there. It's not like it's getting worse or better. It's just a ringing when you speak. It's almost just like a little bit of feedback.
I'm not quite sure. Give me one
Meg is
moment.
saying you don't have any other tabs open in the platform.
Yeah, I do not.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me one moment. If somebody else wants to take that piece, give me 1 second, and I'll try and get this straight.
Well, I can take it and kind of just, is it okay just to kind of tie that into like my company's background and kind of how we integrate that? Okay. So again, I'm Tara. I am the Human Capital Talent Acquisition Lead. That's a mouthful for me to remember to say for System High Corporation. As a whole, our corporation was actually founded by veterans. So our CEO was a retired U.S. Air Force veteran, and our current CEO is a retired Security Forces Air Force veteran as well. As a company, I've heard the term military ready, military friendly, kind of float around both, but so I would say we are both. With our employees, we are about 50% of our employees are either military veterans, military affiliated, or still active duty, either reserve or guard. Especially for one of our contracts, DARPA, which is located in Arlington, Virginia. Almost all of those positions are a senior position. Whether it's our program managers that support at DARPA, whether it's our program security representatives, our CI leads, the majority of those are senior positions, and I'd say at least half of those positions are filled by veterans. I know I wasn't supposed to take that question, but is that kind of where you were going?
Yeah.
Wait for JD. So I just wanted
technical.
Just to start the conversation off.
No, thank you so much.
And Tara, I think you did that beautifully. Is that feedback gone, or is it still there?
It's still there, unfortunately, a little bit, and you're a little bit harder to hear, but let's just try to roll with it.
Let me go off stage, and I'll come back on.
Oh, well, there, it's not there.
That sounds pretty good now, JD.
Oh,
Don't move.
Don't move.
Don't move.
On one leg.
Yeah, and now I'm almost afraid to talk. But Tara, I think
No,
handled that beautifully, because I think this conversation really deserves a nuanced understanding. We really can't address this as a one size fits all solution, because really when you do so, it's a one size fits none. And when you look at the degree of experience and judgment that's coming out, particularly what I think a lot of organizations need at that mid-level to sort of senior level sort of roles, if you remove those titles away from either field grade or non-commissioned officers, what you have is folks that are really good at planning. But then you also have folks that are really good at being technical leaders and simultaneously human leaders. So you have these strong generalists that have high degrees of resilience. They have high degrees and abilities to build teams and to generate trust. And I think that is a key element that Tara offered. I think a really, really good detailed example of what that looks like.
Thank you.
Yes, great. So I'm going to switch over here. Let's talk about the diversity of the talent pool. What factors should we consider when evaluating transitioning service members for senior roles? And why is it crucial to look at the diversity of their experience or experiences?
Yeah.
Oh, I think, who's going?
Go
You
ahead.
ready?
Yeah,
I was gonna say,
go.
so it's really hard sometimes with transitioning service members only because of the resume writing. So a lot of times their experience does not translate, and a lot of times they quantify their value with a dollar amount of what assets or systems or potentially people that they were responsible for, versus let me extract the technical skills and how can I convert that into the civilian world. So a lot of times you have to look at all aspects and try to take out maybe keywords or maybe what command they were supporting in or what location they were in and say, okay, maybe they have SCI experience, maybe they have special access program, maybe they've done some testing events so I don't think you can really have like a roadmap. It's kind of how JD said, it's kind of all or nothing, because some like TAP organizations or organizations that are meant to help the transitioning military don't really hone into those key skills. It's kind of like, I supported a movement of $3.2 billion worth of vehicles. And you're like, well, how do you translate that into maybe logistics for a civilian career or, asset management? So I would say all. It's not really a cookie cutter answer for that question, I would say. JD, back on you.
Well, now, are you on mute?
Said a very, very important word just then of skills, right? And I think a skills-based focus is absolutely critical, because when you start to look there, you see beyond the breadth of diversity, and you see a lot of depth in what those skills and you're just going to find an absolute treasure trove of talent that's there. But you might have to, again, have some processes in place to move past some of those impediments that happen on the resume, right? And it's probably a two-way street on these bridges that we're trying to establish, from this talent that exists to then the opportunities that exist within civilian corporations that are there. But I think those are really, really important things to look at, not only in terms of some hard technical skills, which will be the result of decades of experience with this population, but also some very real human skills. And how do you lead others? How do you, again, build trust within teams that some of those technical skills can reside in? I think, again, asking those questions and having opportunities to get access to those experiences, that answer is a really key concept. It's easier said than done, but I think that's an important place to start.
And if I might add real quick as well, off of both those points from Tara and JD, it's by no means absolutely necessary that you have veterans within your recruiting apparatus. However, it is extremely helpful, and extremely helpful if they're folks that maybe aren't career, but having a career or having spent a significant amount of time on the active duty or reserve side, those folks are they're going to know the right kind of questions to ask. They're going to see some of these things that are a little bit cryptic in a military resume, and it's just going to be, there's going to be less time lost in translation. If you don't have the ability to have a veteran within your recruiting apparatus, I think it also makes sense to look at the folks that you do have and kind of maybe shift that to a dedicated individual and have that individual really wade into the veteran community and wade into what these experiences are, and specialize in that area, because you really do lose a lot if you're just coming at one of these resumes from a background that doesn't include military experience, and you're just playing a guessing game.
And just to bring that home at a more tactical level, couldn't echo even sufficiently strongly the point around skills and competencies. But when you bring it home to a tactical level, that it's key that that's what you're uncovering and that's what you're matching on. So talent acquisition folks, if you're looking to match an open opportunity with folks that are out there, get away from the MOS translators. You want to leverage applications that get down to the skill and competency level. One, because that's where veterans shine. Two, because that's what's going to get you a better quality match at the end of the day.
No, those are all.
Comment. Sorry, just kind of on Darby's comment. Fortunately for my team, we out of 8, we are 7 veterans. So not that we're solely recruiting veterans, but I have 5 Marines on my team. I have 1 Army, and then I'm the solo Air Force, and we have 1 civilian. So it kind of helps to, like how Darby was saying, if you don't understand what you don't know, you don't know. So it is helpful to helping with trying to recruit to those senior positions with military. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, and if you're on a team that doesn't have that concentration, it's a wonderful opportunity for talent acquisition teams to collaborate with veteran-based, military-connected employee resource groups. That's a wonderful cross-cultural sharing within an organization that can not only expose you to veteran talent, but also military spouse talent. And again, just a wide array of very diverse and, again, deeply skilled experiences that are out there.
No, those are all really great. And I know as someone who I'm typically dealing with early career, entry level, more college grads and I do see veteran resumes myself, but those are things as someone I love having contacts, because right now I don't have anyone necessarily within my TA team. But to be able to have someone that can, because I'll see these numbers as Tara was saying, and I'm like, this is good stuff. I know this is obviously very important, but I don't understand what it means. So to have somebody that can kind of, translate that, but also, I think on the flip side, it's us working hand in hand, doing our job in TA, but also those that are applying for those roles to be able to translate that, for those that it's going to take us all working together, I think, to really start to, I guess, see additional headway. And as a company, that is looking to start veteran initiatives, that kind of segues into our next topic here, or next question. For companies that are just starting their veteran hiring initiatives, what advice would any of you give on identifying overlooked skills and experiences? And how can, I know we just mentioned about leveraging internal resources, but any additional resources to help identify veteran talent?
Yeah, so I'll jump in on that, and I'll piggyback on Darby's comment about leveraging your in-house veterans. They do exist, whether you realize it or not. I know self-identification is a challenge. You can get at that without breaking any HR laws, as it were. But if you don't already have one, start with, call it a BRG, an ERG, call it what you will. But establish an in-house tribe of peers. At a strategic level, what they do is serve a functionality to really help bridge the civil military divide within your organization, provide a welcome mat for any new veteran hires. At a tactical level, they serve a multitude of functions. Now, for one, they can help you identify sources of veteran talent. They can get you access on the bases where that talent tends to reside. They can help you, do the translation on the resumes and the 3-letter acronym gibberish that tends to be on veterans' resumes. They can help you generate curriculum for, training those new veteran hires, for training the managers of those new veteran hires in your organization. They can help train the talent acquisition professionals about, what types of questions to ask during interviews, how to interview those things. They can sit in on all those interviews, as well as the onboarding sessions. Yeah. The point is they can serve any number of functionalities and be a significant labor pool that helps lighten your load. They can also serve to coach managers who might be, newly overseeing, supervising a new veteran hire. And again, back to where I started, in serving as that tribal peer group, help those new veteran hires assimilate into the culture of the organization. I know we're going to talk culture in a bit, but it's incredibly important. And specifically, what I'll end with is on the actual translation. I've been party to an organization called PurePost, PurePost.co. If you go complete or have a veteran complete what's called a passport, it's a free profile for Free for Life. It'll instantly translate their military work history into their underlying competencies and skills and instantly match them to employment opportunities in your organization. It's all free, so have at it.
Oh, yeah. Matt, would you be willing to drop that into the chat? I was reading. And also, we had a request to provide the titles of your books. So I don't know if you could provide those in the chat as well.
Yeah,
I think that'd be really helpful. Anyone else, want to add?
I think being part of Vet Index is, if nothing else, is a great first start. I attended the in-person conference last year and learned a wealth of knowledge. So even if you don't know where to go, I think anybody that knows about Vet Index, that took the time to be part of it today, that's at least a great first step for anybody that's inquiring on how to get into that talent pool. I would also say social media. LinkedIn is a great tool. Not utilized as much that I believe it can, but there's a lot of career talent that's available on LinkedIn. Also, Hire Our Heroes is a great program. SkillBridge is a great program where we're all affiliated with as well. We are also part of some, there's an Air Force Security Forces Association that we're members of. So just tap into your local networks. Get in touch with the bases. They all have employment readiness offices. They all have TAPS offices where you're able to give demonstrations or talks during their transition. They do them quarterly or monthly or so forth. And you can talk about your open positions, send them some information about your company. So sometimes it's just starting local and kind of branching out. So if you're within 50 to 100 miles of maybe a military base, try reaching out there, saying, how can we collaborate with you? We want to help your military members transition, and kind of it's all about networking. Whoever makes the first move, it is, but just starting that initial contact, I think, would help a lot.
Yeah, and this notion of triangulation, right? Whether it's starting internally with some of those resources and that Matt was referencing, where it's looking a little bit externally, state-based Department of Veteran Services are oftentimes, I think, overlooked assets that can really give you a detailed, localized feel of what either coming off of military bases or just in a particular area, right? I mean, in terms of context, veterans comprise about 5.8% of the workforce population in America right now. But if you live in a state like I do in Virginia, it's 10%. And in certain regions of Virginia, it's as much as 15%. And that applies in different areas. And I think that contextualized knowledge should also be as eye-opening as some of the very personalized insights that these other resources can provide as well.
Would you all say, I guess, if for those that are attending the panel or the discussion today, if you had to pick one place to start, I think sometimes it can be overwhelming with wanting to dive in and network over here and network over here and network over here. For those that want to just move the needle slightly, what would be the one starting point that you all would advocate for? Or you may have different ones.
I would say LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Because you can look up all of these separate groups and affiliations and recruiters and associations. all the organizations have their own websites. So you can pretty much, it's like a Facebook for the working community. You can type in anything that you're looking for. I mean, you won't find everything, but versus, you're right, having 100 tabs open at the same time trying to navigate. I don't
I've
have
gone
any
down
stock
that
in
rabbit hole
LinkedIn. I'm just
personally,
saying, I
so-
like it.
That's me. I'm like, okay, 15 tabs. And I'm like, I need to dial this back and pick one direction. So
I would say LinkedIn
as-
doesn't hurt.
Yeah, and particularly in the talent acquisition community, so many talent acquisition professionals are using the premium features of LinkedIn, and the learning components of that, particularly for veterans, could be really, really enriching. I would also recommend the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's Hiring Our Heroes corporate fellowship program, particularly for this group of folks that we're talking about that could come in at a little bit more of a senior level as well. That's also, I think, a very well thought out and designed program that is based off the same mechanics of SkillBridge, but it's focusing in with a slightly different talent pool that, again, different organizations might be able to take advantage of.
So I'm gonna. Oh, Matt.
I'll pile on one more. I sit on JP Morgan's advisory council for military veteran affairs, and JP Morgan, for those that aren't aware, kind of rides herd on the Veteran Jobs Mission. And if you're not familiar with VJM, it's a nationwide coalition, about 328, I think, is what we're up to these days, of organizations that have made commitments to bring on some number of veterans and military spouses. So it's a community of like-minded people, for one. They get together periodically and trade best practices. So it's a way to kind of benchmark, if you will, fellow organizations that have been at this for well over a decade or more, and will help you get up to speed quickly and leverage the best practices that they've long since established.
I'm going to transition us over as we're getting kind of close. This is flying by. But I do want to discuss and transition over into culture transparency. How important is it for both companies and transitioning service members to understand each other's cultures? And how can we build that, how can we build that bridge?
Yeah, so I'll jump in on this. I think an organization's culture, again, especially for the levels that we're talking about, it's really the chief determinant of that individual's tenure in the organization and their ability to assimilate with that organization or not. And it's important because retention rates of veterans, I'm talking broadly, tend to increase significantly if you can get them to be in the organization beyond the 2-year mark. And yet it's probably one of the more difficult things that these folks coming out of the service can put their finger on. When they leave the service, whether they realize it or not, they're going to simultaneously experience a host of changes along what I call a multitude of cultural dimensions. Purpose, mission versus money, the organizational structure coming from a hierarchy into what's probably a matrix. The training they'll be administered will be different than what they had in the military. The compensation benefits will be different. The SOPs and how they're provided are different. Talent models, career management, I could go on and on, but it's all going to be different. So how can you in your organization proactively give them a sense of what a day in the life in your organization might look like? And to answer that, I think let's break down what is culture. And it has its roots in values. Values form the basis for behavior, and the collective behaviors of the organization is what forms culture. And the interesting thing here is you go out to a lot of organizations and they'll tell on their website, they'll try to put a definition to what their culture is and list out their values. But if you speak with someone in the organization, what actually transpires on a day-to-day basis may or may not match what's on their website. And so, again, it's important to leverage your in-house veterans. Again, they do exist. Pull them in to your talent acquisition orbit. Have them help put together outreach materials that kind of speak to what some of the underlying values and behaviors are. Have them be part of the vetting process. Take the time to relate to these aspiring employees, how work actually gets done in the organization. Have them follow up during the negotiation process, ensure they have all their questions answered and are coming in with eyes wide open. It's critical, I think, that happens. If you can get them to that point, I think you stand a much greater chance of retaining them for that period of time.
Great.
Am I taking? Can you guys
Yeah.
hear me? Oh, okay.
Yep.
I
Go
just
ahead,
felt
Tara.
frozen. I was like, wait a
No, I think
minute.
we spoke at the same time, and
I want to
it
interrupt.
figure out.
Sorry. But I kind of want to go off of what Matt was saying, how where a lot of companies and organizations will say what their motto is or their culture is, but then in real life it's something different. I'm fortunate enough, I guess, or our employees are fortunate enough that well let me just speak to that. We are very transparent with what our culture, with what our culture and our beliefs are. We believe in what we call a serving leadership, and we're completely upfront with what our style and our system is upfront when we initially talk to candidates, whether they are veterans or not. And I like to describe our leadership style as an upside down pyramid where like our CEO, our COOs, our VPs are on the bottom and they support the employees from the bottom up. I think that it translates very well and it's incorporated into our core being because our initial CEO, our founding CEO, and our current CEO are both retired military. So it's more of integrity first. And if we're saying that we are here for the employees, we're not about the Willy Wonka ticket where we know that the COO exists, but we never see them. They are very forward thinking. Like you're not just a number, you're not just a check off. Like we don't put warm bodies in seats. So that's something that we're very proud of, is especially our culture and our core values. And I think that if other organizations were able to tie those two more accurately, then that would be but sorry, I just wanted to just say that.
No apology needed. No, that's great. That's important. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to. Oh, did someone else have something? No. Anyone that is just any of our attendees, if you do have questions, please definitely use the Q&A option so that I do want to leave some time here to have address any questions that y'all have. But I do want to kind of just wrap up here, speaking to cultural transparency and just kind of sum up the entire discussion as a whole by hearing a couple success stories about veterans transitioning into a senior role and how they adapted to that civilian work life. So I'm going to turn it over to Darby so that he can share his personal experience.
Sure. Thanks, Jessica. And, once again, as we're starting to wrap up here, thanks to everybody on the panel. For me, this has been a great experience to share with you all and with the folks that are listening in. And yeah, I mean, I could not echo Matt's comments enough regarding, the tribe of folks within an organization from a military background, from a veteran background, and how that not only helps folks transition into a company out of military service, but then also those networks are living, breathing things and an excellent source of additional talent coming into a company. And that's exactly how I found myself in the seat that I'm in now. And a particular plug I'll put in for reservists, just because I know it can be a challenge managing that specific group of veterans because of the duty requirements that they have to contend with on the reserve side of things. But because they have these continuous touch points, they float between other reserve communities, active duty communities, depending upon whom they're serving at a given point in time. But I mean, in my story, really, I bounced around quite a bit. Matt had mentioned that 2-year mark. The first couple companies I was with, I certainly did not meet the 2-year mark, and a lot of it had to do with culture in those organizations, some of which had significant government missions and a lot of veterans within the companies, but just not the same kind of pointed effort that VSO, where I am currently, makes to bring veterans in and make them part of a community. But I came to the position through a colleague of mine that I met at Reserve Command and Staff College. So we were there, we were chatting. We also happened to have gone through the same MBA program at the University of North Carolina. And it was through that network. He innately understood my experience in the past because he was a fellow field grade officer in the Marine Corps. We had the additional commonality there of the graduate program. And as I mentioned earlier, the vetting process, there's already a certain amount of that just kind of innately is completed when you have these shared experiences. And he brought me in to the company at a director level position, and since then, moved on up to this vice president role. But yes, I mean, in my case, it was very much this sort of informal network that veterans have was key in me being placed where I am today.
Thank you. And then Tara, I know you had a story that you wanted to share as well.
Oh, just a short and little sweet one. I actually wanted to share about my director at System High. Again, there's many military folks that I can mention, but I wanted to mention him. He was born and brought up in Colombia, came to the United States, migrated to Miami, decided he wanted to join the Marine Corps, so enlisted right after 18 as an infantryman in the Marine Corps. Wind up transitioning into becoming a recruiter while he was active duty and retired as a recruiter. Came to System High as a lead technical recruiter for our company, then a manager. And as our team, I should say, continued to grow, he became our first director of talent and acquisitions for System High. So I think that his is definitely a success story.
Great. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, I do want to leave some time for some questions. And, I think one thing I did want to bring up, and we've touched, I know there was a comment about, that oftentimes the reservists are at times forgotten. And earlier in the chat, Sam had said, I think this can be extremely difficult for reservists and National Guard because they only do their job in quotes once during a month. And many employers want a certain amount of experience doing these jobs that translate directly into the civilian world. So does anyone have any thoughts around reservists and guardists that, to just give a little bit of a boost and confidence around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the keys is just as a leadership in an organization, you really just kind of need to understand, the nature of what they're doing. I think so much of the apprehension or the issues revolve around just not really getting it. To be kind of blunt about it, I mean, these folks, they're very much dedicated to their civilian careers, and ultimately, I think if you were to ask any reservist, they understand that at the end of the day, it's their civilian career that's putting bread on the table. But at the same time, it's I can just speak from personal experience. It's tough to take the uniform off, and if you have the opportunity to continue serving, you want to be able to do that. That's just sort of the nature of folks that have been through any kind of military service. That it sticks to you. And I think the key for leadership is just to understand, hey, this is somebody that, there will be a few challenges maybe from time to time. They're going to be absent. But what they're bringing back to me is that continued experience that they're gaining that we talked about at the beginning of this call as we're talking about the resumes and what have you. They're still gaining that experience. They're still adding to what they brought initially as a veteran into your organization. So you may lose them for a couple of weeks. You may lose them for a month. But just know that when you're getting them back, you're getting them back with even more than when they left.
I'll take a different angle to that, which is for the employers out there. By hiring a member of the Guard or the Reserve, you're contributing to the nation's security. If you take the long-term view to it. Now, tactically, how do you deal with that? If you're not a member of the ESGR, Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve, become a member. They will help you arbitrate any one-off situations where an individual might be recalled and activated. Fact of the matter is, stereotype is as employers, I have no control over this individual. You absolutely do. You can designate individuals as key members that cannot be activated or recalled. And ESGR can help you work through all of that. Moreover, they offer a means by which you can have your support of the Guard rewarded. They have an annual awards program, which will help embellish your brand and make you reflect as being, to borrow Tara's earlier term, military friendly or military ready.
JD, you're on mute.
Sorry, it's not showing mute on my screen, but
Oh,
Got you now.
okay, yeah. But I would just take things one step further because whatever challenges that do exist there are far outweighed from the talent that comes in. And I think, particularly as Darby was pointing out, one of the challenges that does exist is that folks that are either transitioning from active duty or from the reserve component, they're actually struggling with questions of identity. And that's why Matt's comments, as well as Tara's comments on value congruence, is so important. The question is, what isn't? The question is not, what am I going to do? The question is, who am I going to be? And I think organizations can actually use that idea of a transitioning professional identity as actually a huge call to action, because what is happening is actually the identification of a new chapter of service, albeit outside of uniform, but it's still an important degree of service as well. And I think more than anything, that congruence, it starts with values,
Yep.
it starts with transparency, but it can actually be deeply, deeply inspirational to everyone involved in the relationship.
perfect. Great. And I think I had been dropped in the chat, but I did get a question about the website you mentioned, Matt, that can translate veterans' experiences. I think it may have been dropped in the chat before,
Sure, I'll add it again.
but yeah, I think just having those additional. And then I think we're kind of up on time. I did have one other question that I know I saw earlier in the chat. Just asking, from a recruiting standpoint, as a recruiter, and maybe Tara, you have a little bit of advice you could do here with handling situations where a hiring manager is wanting to fill that position yesterday. I think we get that a lot. And as a recruiter, you have a lot of recs and metrics to beat. And so you don't feel like you necessarily have that time to really analyze these resumes, because they're looking for those keyword and quick hires. So I think this is more of a question around beating that time to fill. So what advice would you have, if we're seeing veteran resumes and as someone who, isn't well versed in that,
Right.
how to handle that?
Well, so personally, we don't use an ATS system to vet our resumes. We go through each resume one by one. Number two, I think culturally, we should be in the positions to be mutually beneficial to the candidates as well as the company, and not just put a body in a seat. So if you have this timeline, I think as a recruiter, you need to be more forthcoming with your program managers or those who are doing the hiring and saying, okay, let's break this down to exactly what it is, what you're looking for, what you need, and then take that time to, when you see those resumes that might have some of the skill sets again, but don't have that verbiage, we have to do our due diligence to take that one-on-one. Personalization is really big here. Having those 15-20-minute conversations to kind of extract out those skills. Having them redo their resume saying, hey, there's these 5 bullet points that are in my job rec that you have experience in, but it's not in your resume. Please take about 10, 15 minutes, just update your resume. And that way you're being proactive. That way, when you send those resumes to the PM, all of those boxes are being checked instead of lagging time with going back and forth. If you're on the same page as your hiring managers and your program managers, you can kind of get ahead of some of those nuances and help to meet or beat those timelines.
Great advice. Well, definitely do want to. I don't see any additional questions at this time, and I know we're kind of at the top of our time, but definitely, thank you all for joining and providing your insights and the resources. 40 minutes is never enough time. I know we could discontinue, but definitely thank you so much, and happy to have been able to be on this panel with y'all.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, and nice to converse with everybody.
Good to see everybody.
Yes, on behalf of the whole Vets Indexes team, I'd like to thank everyone for taking part today. All the speakers, all the sponsors, and most importantly, all the attendees as well taking part. More than 1,500 registered. Really a fantastic day. Big reminder, everybody mark your calendars, April 10th for the spring conference in New York City. And if you can't join in person, please join us virtually. We'll be sending that link out soon. On employinguSvets.com, you can register. And also, one last thing, for all organizations that take part in the Vets Index's Employer Awards Survey and Recognition Program, regardless of how you perform with the awards, we do grant one complimentary ticket as a token of gratitude and to get everybody in the same room together. So thank you all. Have a wonderful day and have a great and a fantastic week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right.